What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase it's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job done. You get a certain amount of cult followers for anything, and then the true believers never die. I mean, a lot of people would say right now the Democratic Party is still in that mode, which is going to render them possibly an irrelevant party if they don't change.
What would you like to see from the Democrats, going forward?
Well, much more centrism, much more get rid of the woke baggage, old school liberal is what I usually describe myself as. But that's very often the opposite of woke. Woke would like people to believe that there's some sort of an extension of liberalism, but they're not. They're usually something that's quite opposite. Liberalism was, we should have a colorblind society and not see race at all. That's not what the woke believe.
Yeah, I would say
they're the opposite.
Quite.
Let's put race at the front of everything.
You'll want to see this. Bill Maher has been making headlines again, this time taking aim at what he sees as extreme political rhetoric in both media and protest movements. In a recent segment, Maher strongly criticized certain progressive leaders, including Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for not speaking out against demonstrators who covered the American flag with a Palestinian one, a move many saw as deeply disrespectful. But that wasn't the only topic on the table. Maher also challenged members of his own political side, calling out what he described as overuse of identity politics and a lack of balance in the national conversation. And while some of these moments didn't make major headlines, we've gathered all the key clips right here for you. If you're interested in open discussions and bold takes, be sure to subscribe, and let's dive in.
The thought leaders in the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great. The Democrats are doomed. Alyssa Slotkin's right. Liberals are weak and woke, especially the white ones, and they indulge all sorts of nonsense from their kids, a pattern that then continues on in the Democratic Party. Last election, it was all the gender stuff, the insistence that men can have babies and such, and now I fear that we like the terrorists is the new that. Liberals need to push back on the dumb ideas that come from their children.
Bill Maher didn't hold back right from the start. He called out what he sees as extreme political messaging on the left, saying it's no longer just frustrating, it's becoming harmful to the party itself. He pointed out that in the last election, some Democratic leaders pushed progressive talking points so strongly that it ended up costing them at the polls. You'd think that would have been a wake-up call. But now, Maher says, it's the younger generation of Democrats who are doubling down, following the same path. And if that continues, he warns, it could do more than lose votes. It could seriously damage the party's future. What really caught people off guard was what Maher said next. Even his own audience seemed surprised.
The meaning of the word woke has changed. It became something else. The crowd decided that it was the word we're using for too far leftist crazy bullshit. And I just would love to know what you think about that.
It was inevitable that that was going to happen because a certain small but influential crowd of people were really obnoxious in 2020 and 2021. 15 years from now, and I'll bet woke is just going to mean somebody who jumps all over you. It's not going to be about left or right. Don't talk to Aunt Hattie about Uncle Joe because they're broken up now and she's going to go all woke on you.
It's surprising, but there's truth to it. At one time, being woke meant being socially aware, standing up for fairness, inclusion, and justice. But over the last several years, that original meaning has been lost. Some major media voices and influential figures have taken the idea and pushed it into extremes, turning what started as a positive movement into something many people now see as divisive. We're seeing ideologies that seem disconnected from everyday reality, with rigid views on sensitive topics, strong pressure to conform, and little room for open discussion. The effects have been real. Careers have been affected, families have felt the tension, and there's growing concern that we're drifting away from shared values and respectful dialogue. Yet instead of stepping back and reflecting, some continue to push forward, treating disruption as progress, even when it divides more than it unites. And if this pattern continues, the consequences could grow even more serious.
You get a certain amount of cult followers for anything, and then the true believers never die. I mean, a lot of people would say right now the Democratic Party is still in that mode, which is going to render them possibly an irrelevant party if they don't change.
What would you like to see from the Democrats, like, going forward?
Well, much more centrism, much more get rid of the woke baggage, you know. Old school liberal is what I usually describe myself as. But that's very often the opposite of woke. Woke would like people to believe that they're some sort of an extension of liberalism, but they're not. They're usually something that's quite opposite. Liberalism was, we should have a colorblind society and not see race at all. That's not what the woke believe.
Yeah, I would say
they're the opposite.
Quite.
Let's put race at the front of everything.
Bill Maher hasn't mentioned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez by name just yet, but it's clear he's pointing to the kind of politics she often represents. AOC is known for her strong progressive stances, and identity politics often plays a central role in her messaging. Maher's concern is bigger than any one person, though. He believes the Democratic Party is taking a real risk by focusing too much on identity and not enough on ideas. In his view, that strategy may energize a small base, but it could alienate the broader public. He points to moments when AOC has responded to criticism by framing it as racism or sexism, or suggested that political opposition is rooted in fear of women of color in leadership roles. For Maher, this reflects a growing trend where disagreement is often dismissed as prejudice instead of being addressed through open, issue-based discussion. His warning is clear. If Democrats continue down this path, they could lose support from moderates and independents, not because people don't care about justice or fairness, but because they want real conversations, not labels. And without room for genuine debate, the party's influence could fade.
An AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Bill Maher isn't just taking aim at online activists or fringe voices. He's calling out senior figures in the Democratic Party. These are the experienced politicians, the ones often seen as the party's steady hands. But Maher says they've failed to lead when it matters most. Instead of guiding younger members with context, facts, and a broader sense of responsibility, many have remained silent, or even encouraged the more extreme rhetoric. Why? Maher argues it's because they're focused on short-term wins, the next election, social media trends, and approval ratings, rather than the bigger picture. He warns that this kind of leadership, or lack of it, has real consequences. When experienced voices refuse to step up, the party can lose direction, driven more by emotion than principle. To Maher, it's not just a political misstep. It's a betrayal of the core values the party claims to stand for. And if it continues, he believes the country could ultimately pay the price.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job done.
In a powerful statement, Bill Maher took aim at the idea of a potential AOC Bernie Sanders ticket, calling it out as far too extreme for most Americans. Maher believes that if the Democratic Party is serious about winning future elections, it needs to step away from fringe ideologies and focus on real-world solutions, not just emotional appeals or popular buzzwords. According to Maher, leaders, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, often seem more focused on making political statements than on delivering practical results. He criticized what he sees as performance politics, where the goal is to please social media rather than address the everyday needs of voters. Maher argues that the Democratic Party needs leaders who are steady, realistic, and unafraid to take tough but necessary positions, not ones who shift with every trending topic. He warned that if the party continues to prioritize ideology over practicality, it risks not only losing the next election, but also its connection to everyday Americans. He even pointed to recent events in the UK, where strong political and legal pushback signaled a broader public frustration with extreme ideological movements. A message he suggests American leaders should take seriously.
What is your reaction to the UK Supreme Court declaring that the definition of a woman is, well, we should include you in this too. It's about women, is based on biological sex and excludes transgender people. Yeah, this was a big ruling this week in England. The Supreme Court, their definition of woman is biological sex. To put it in shorthand, J.K. Rowling won.
Yes. J.K. Rowling won. Everyone who said this for years has won. All the, particularly women who've been defamed and lied about and bullied and chased and much more for years, they were right. And I just think, apart from being a statement of the obvious, isn't it amazing that the best legal minds in Britain spent years having to work out the first thing we knew as a species?
But I think we would agree that, you know, children, and this is where America is now an outlier country. We're the only country that went full, and I guess Trump is reversing it, but certainly under Biden, who went fully toward that. Like, we don't care what age, kids can self-diagnose themselves. I mean, that to me was going way too far on this. Again, nobody just comes back to the sensible center.
Sensible center is that, like, you respect people, you trust parents, you let parents figure out what to do with their kids, and you don't need a bunch of politicians in Washington making decisions.
That is not the Democratic position, at least here in California.
Well, that's my position.
I'm good. I think that's where the Democratic Party should. That is not the position that we've had here in California, which is like, don't tell the parents what the kids are doing at school. That's a whole, and that you really alienate voters. Yeah. Parents are voters.
Sex is not a spectrum. I mean, it's male and female. There are some people with very unusual conditions who deserve absolute sympathy and support. But that does not mean that we're a hermaphroditic species. We're just not.
No, but
that's not it.
No, not the whole species. But this goes back, I mean, I don't want to use the term chicks with dicks, but I could. You did. I mean, this goes back to like ancient Rome, and like there was always people who were like not quite one.
It's not hard to get to toleration and acceptance without rewriting biology.
Right. Right.
It's a norm. That's your normal sense.
Yeah.